So, I read Eve's Kara No Kioku. For those of you who don't know who Eve is, he's an extremely popular J-pop artist who is mostly known in the anime-manga community for his work on the first opening of Jujutsu Kaisen, Kai Kai Kitan. It's actually his most popular work overall, receiving well over 200 million views on YouTube and easily passing up his previous magnum opus, Dramaturgy. He has tons of different musical works, and for a lot of them he likes to hire animators to create videos for his music. Actually, he has so many animated videos that there's sort of an ongoing joke about him having animators locked up in his basement for whenever he needs a video, but I digress. One of his works that stood out to me the most and has now become one of my favorites by him is the song How to Eat Life, otherwise known as the Japanese name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. The song and lyrics were great, and as always the animations for the video of the song were outstanding. Pretty much none of the animations used in his videos are ever based off anything, so as with every animated video of his, I remember thinking to myself how it looked so good that I would actually watch it if it had an anime. I felt that especially strongly with this video because if you know me, you know I'm really big on supernatural series, and there was really nothing short of that in this video. Upon deeper inspection and diving into the comments, I learned that this video in particular, unlike his others, was based off a manga that went by the name of Kara No Kioku. What interested me even more was the fact that it was written by the man who made the song himself. In curiosity, I went around the internet and found a place to read it, and what I saw left me pleasantly surprised. And so, in today's video, I wanted to share my findings and maybe convince you to give a shot at reading Kara No Kioku, written by Eve and illustrated by Nuo. Just as our hearts can show gentleness and kindness, just as our hearts can present the colors you think of, they're most likely to have a shape. But if that shape and appearance grows, you won't even be able to control it. If your alter ego grows self-conscious, what would happen to a heart that broke apart? The manga of Kara No Kioku was first published on April 15th, 2020 and serialized in Monthly Comic Gene magazine. The story follows a boy named Tsukumo Rei who lives on his own and is getting ready to enroll in his first year of high school. From the beginning, he's shown to have a pit in his stomach, a certain level of anxiety that he can't seem to shake off for some reason. At first, he attributes this to the fact that he and his parents moved to Tokyo for family reasons, which are later specified as due to their work. As such a new experience, he felt certain that it was only natural for him to feel this way, even going as far as referencing a notion of human change, coming to the conclusion that regardless of what changes may happen in life, humans will always find a way to adapt and get used to those changes. In doing so, they would eventually return to their old habits and routines, and of course, Rei would not exclude himself from this type of behavior. Regardless of what he would tell himself, however, there were just too many subtle circumstances occurring in his daily life for him to fully convince himself that what he was going through was merely coincidence and only a feeling that would eventually subside. Whether those coincidences were bumping into suspicious people, hearing things, or feeling a certain weight on his shoulder and in his conscience, they all serve the same purpose of making his day-to-day life feel slightly off. Rei then makes the decision to go to school despite what he's feeling, and attends his first day. Initially, the experience is pretty much what you would expect for a normal first day of high school. He sees countless new faces and even meets a couple of people that he later forms bonds with, some more outgoing or more shy than others. It's also worth noting that he comes across others with an air of distress very similar to his own. The day continues regularly as he goes from class to class. Nothing out of the ordinary. In spite of how things look, however, the feeling of unease that was looming over Rei before remains ever present, and it festers, far more intensely than we as the readers are led to originally believe. He eavesdrops on the voices of the people all around him, and picks up on terribly discouraging words that seem to be directed at him. A scene that perfectly captures the feeling of emotional distress with the use of the more murky side of Nuo's artwork, showing the range and variety that he's capable of in his illustration. As Rei slips further and further from his seat in the classroom into the depths of his mind, desperately wishing for all the negativity he's been feeling to go away, he notices something. This same something having been alluded to in the first pages of this chapter. An ache in his chest, a feeling of anguish in his heart. This is when he realizes it was all a dream. Or so he believes. He opens his eyes to find himself alone in his classroom, but more importantly, staring down at the strange creature that appeared on his desk. He wonders if he's still dreaming, or perhaps if he's hallucinating. but concludes that things feel much too real to be a matter of either situation. He notices a presence dart past his classroom door, so he grabs his bag and walks quickly to inspect it. Though it seems to have disappeared at first, he then turns to identify a dark monster-like figure. In the next panel, he is seen running out of the school and into the streets that are evidently filled up with these abnormal creatures, questioning why everyone he passes by acts as if they're normal, and even bumping into some occasionally as he goes. Our protagonist eventually calms himself and assesses the situation as he heads home, making note of several things. For starters, Ray realizes that he is the only one who can see these beings, which would explain everyone's lack of surprise and concern in this circumstance. He also surmises that the creatures would not be hostile to him if he was not hostile to them. And lastly, though he isn't sure of it, he has a fleeting suspicion that the strange creature he woke up to in class and has been following him constantly since may be the cause of everything that he was going through. Nevertheless, this was all merely speculation on his part. As he walks home and everything slowly de-escalates, he is yet again faced with something that seemingly intends to magnify the gravity of his situation. Ray encounters yet another one of these supernatural figures, this time however, humanoid in shape and clad in black, taking the appearance of a one-eyed man in a top hat. You can tell from the expression that Ray makes that this one gives off a far different presence than all the others that he's come upon, and as the two fixate their gazes onto one another, our first chapter comes to an end. With just this first chapter, we're given more than enough reason to stick around for the next and see where the story progresses from here. It's almost inevitable that a story of the supernatural genre will always have some similarities to others of its kind, but as the story progresses, what we're given by Eve is something that is fairly unique and has a great amount of potential for the future of its existence. For starters, in taking a look at more integral parts of this manga, I'd like to give props to just about everything I can that makes up for all the enjoyment I've had with this series so far. First off, let me say that this story's cast is very intriguing. Being this early on, obviously not many characters have been introduced so far. The ones that have been introduced, however, have many layers to them, a lot of which remain unexplored currently. Most of the cast that we see up to this point have some mystery to their background, and so as we get more and more knowledge surrounding each character, it makes them all the more enjoyable to stick with. Aside from this, they all have their own unique roles that they take on within the narrative and play their part very well. My personal favorite so far being Tobi Otogiri, who plays this sort of Megumi or Rukia type character that acts as the one giving the main character knowledge of all the abnormalities and weird occurrences that they've been experiencing. He has this really cool attitude and only gets serious when things call for it, which is my type of character. Also, he has this really cool ass duffel bag with a mouth on it, which is a plus in my opinion. Might I also mention that he's the character from the video of Inochi no Tabekata, what do you know, I pronounced it, which played a huge part in me getting into the series in the first place. There's also the main character, Tsukumo Rei, of course, who I love in the aspect that he's very relatable. This is also something that I love to see in characters, and it's a very prominent trope used in the supernatural genre in general, given that a lot of these types of series tend to be grounded in some sort of modern reality. We receive a great first antagonist in the peculiar man who refers to himself as You.
Who are you?
You.
No, not me, you.
Yes, I am you.
Just answer the damn questions. Who are you?
I have told you.
Are you deaf?
No, you is blind.
Who seems to have far more knowledge on things than he lets on, and Nagi Iori, who stands as a great parallel to our main character in what he goes through. There's a few more of the cast that I could touch on, but to sum it up, they're simply just very promising characters. Of course, the character design also pairs well and isn't over the top. And speaking of which, if you are a big enough fan of Eve's videos, which apparently I wasn't, if you pay close enough attention, you'll notice cameos of characters from his other music videos, some more obvious than others. The biggest example I can think of being the Cyclops that appears at the end of the first chapter, dubbed Hitotsume, who also makes an appearance in the music videos of the songs Literary Nonsense and the aforementioned Dramaturgy. Knowing this, it's definitely interesting to wonder if there will be more characters from his other videos that play important roles as well later on, similar to Tobi and Hitotsume. Moving on to choreography, it's definitely solid in the early stages, but only gets better as time goes on, like the rest of Nuo's artwork. Fight scenes never seem to fail with their intensity and keeps you at the edge of your seat, and lastly, of course, the story has yet to fail to deliver in the department of emotional interest. As with any manga, Kara No Kioku is not without its flaws, especially in the early stages that we're in currently. In my own experience, I felt like the paneling was pretty bland throughout the initial chapters. This took away from the impact of certain scenes that would have really left a great impression on me otherwise. Of course, this gets resolved with time, and I love how Nuo eventually uses full page spreads to his advantage, advantage, but the early paneling is very lackluster. There were certain panels in the initial phases of the manga that I believe would have worked far greater as a full-sized, single, or even double-page spread. Additionally, the sizing of some of his earlier panels seemed a bit small to me, but that could just be me. In terms of art style, as I said before, I do love how he's able to shift the tone of his illustration from gritty to bright within a moment's notice. That being said, while I do love the range of his art, I did think that the sudden change from soft to rough between panels could be pretty jarring. Similar to his paneling, however, with time it seems he struck a good balance between those bright and murky art styles that makes his artwork really pleasing to look at. He still utilizes those tonal shifts in his art, but it isn't as sudden and still has some ratio or balance between the tones that he uses. Story-wise, I do think that the pacing is okay to start with. Once you hit a climax and tension falls, I do believe that it takes a bit to reach that same level of hype, so if you're expecting a whole lot of fighting going on, I'll warn you that there's a good amount of dialogue to sit through. I don't want to make that out as a bad thing, however, because through said lore we receive very insightful information about different characters, events, lore, and just the world of Kara No Kioku as a whole. This info only heightens our anticipation for the rest of the story to see what every revelation we get is leading up to. In essence, it shouldn't be hard for you to sit through if you enjoy a good story. All in all, while not perfect, this manga delivers an experience that I believe is at least worth giving a try. These types of stories are definitely not for everyone, but through giving it a shot, you may find yourself reading something that you deem to have a fairly distinctive premise with lots of potential, just like I did myself. At the time of the making of this video, there are actually only 20 chapters, so you could catch up pretty easily. My only regret is the fact that it's monthly and can be somewhat inconsistent with the dates that new chapters are supposed to be released. But I find the wait worth sitting through if it only serves to improve the quality of this manga in the future. That being said, thank you all for watching this video. It means a lot that you guys stick with me and continue to support me despite my pretty much non-existent uploading schedule. I know it's been a while, so I wanted to put some good work and effort into this video. Kara No Kioku is a manga that I've been enjoying a lot in my busy time, and I found that it was actually pretty underrated, so I wanted to talk a little about it. It also just intrigued me to see who it was made by, and I figured that many people would be more willing to give it a try if they knew that the man who wrote the story was none other than Eve. I was actually a really big fan of his before he blew up with his song Dramaturgy and later the opening of Jujutsu Kaisen, so I was really glad to experience this story and see what he had to offer in terms of manga creation. And I'm just as relieved to say that it wasn't a disappointment. But anyways, feel free to drop a like if you enjoyed the video, comment your thoughts and let me know if you plan on giving this a try. If you already have, let me know what you think about it, and of course subscribe if you like hearing me ramble on for whatever reason. I'd really appreciate it since we're not far off from 100 subs. And as always, this has been Tenta. Stay easy, guys. Oh yeah, PS, Eve has also recently taken part of a new project called Adam by Eve, a live in action, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, a movie that is partly animated and partly in live action. Live actions obviously don't have the best rep, but this looked pretty cool in my opinion, and I thought it had potential. It's exclusive to Japan, so I don't know how I would check it out to begin with, VPN. But if you guys want me to talk about it in the future, then just let me know. I'll go ahead and leave a link to the trailer in the description so you guys can go ahead and check it out for yourselves. Okay, bye.
Always in trouble, need love on the double, spend cake in a lifetime, climbing to the level, contract with the devil, loophole, expiration date, on the side of good people, always set the record straight, round and round the piano keys, meditate, felt it in the music, need it now, can't let it wait, it's not a secret, everything is all out and exposed, going down like the water in the